Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Matt McCoy. I'm the chairman of the North Kingstown 350th Anniversary Committee. This is the next in our series of lecture series. Let me see a show of hands of how many people have been to any of the others. Awesome. Okay. This one tonight, you were here for the balance between restoration and renovation in historic homes. And I've been told that many of you happen to live in historic homes. So probably of great interest to you. Our speakers this evening, we have a North Kingstown resident, Eric Thorkilsen, who is from This Old House Ventures, and Richard Trethewey. Trethewey. Sure. Okay. Trethewey. This old house.
First day of school.
plumbing and history, or plumbing and heating expert. So basically, for more than 30 years, North Kingstown resident Eric Thorkilsen was president and CEO of This Old House Ventures, parent company of the award-winning This Old House PBS television series, focusing on the renovation and rehabilitation of homes across the country, including many built centuries ago. Eric will be joined by Richard, the plumbing and heating expert, cast member of the hit This Old House series since 1980, sharing video from a recent renovation of a 1720 Cape Ann Gambrel in Ipswich, Mass. And they will share a few of the many key issues facing homeowners like yourselves, undertaking a respectful but practical rebuilding of a historic home. And so before they begin, I just want to remind you that we have some upcoming events following this one. This Saturday at Wilson Park, beginning at noon, is our Family Day event. It runs from noon to 5. Fun for all ages. It's free and open to the public. I hope you can make it. The town's founding is actually September the 28th. We're going to have a Founders Day event on Saturday the 26th of September. And so there'll be more put out about that. And then our big North Kingstown 350th Anniversary Parade is going to be on Saturday the 5th of October. So look for announcements for that. So without further ado, gentlemen.
Thank you, Matt.
So I am so grateful, and all of you will be so grateful that Rich could join me here tonight. Otherwise, you'd be stuck with me for the next hour or so. But Rich, aside from being one of the original cast members of this amazing show, he is himself an expert craftsman and highly knowledgeable guy in all of the systems and the materials that go into our homes to make them comfortable for ourselves. But he's also been, as a part of This Old House, been on the scene for over 40 years with renovations of all kinds of houses, not just old ones, but many different types. And so he has vast knowledge and experience. And as such, he provides for me the adult supervision tonight. And I will be, as you'll see, quickly deferring to him as we go through the evening. But he's also, I should tell you, just a very dear friend of mine. And I'm so grateful that he's here.
When Eric calls, you don't say no.
So the question may come to mind right at the top, why are we celebrating the 350th anniversary of North Kingstown and here in Wickford by talking about a house in Ipswich, Massachusetts? It's a fair question, but I think over the course of the evening, I hope you'll get a sense of why we chose that house to talk about, because it's really partially about that house, but it's really about the houses that we live in here, and in particular the dreams that we have about those houses and how we want them to be better suited for our lives going forward, but also to respect the history that goes into them, particularly in in this town with such amazing homes and history to it. This old house experience that I got to experience for a good number of years, and Rich from the beginning, one of the things we learned about the audience and how the audience really reacts to the content of the shows is that there's several layers to it, but the key layer, which is why we chose this Ipswich house as an example, is that when you sit there and watch any given episode, part of your brain is digesting what you're seeing, but the rest of your brain is thinking about what could I do to my house? And how does that really, how can I take that idea and use it where I am or what I want to do? So we think that there's relevance to using this wonderful Ipswich project as an example, but it's really about us. And I speak from experience because Rich has heard me say this many times, but way back when I used to plan my weekends around when This Old House was on, before there was any choice about when you got to watch anything. I was a first-time homeowner, and this show came along with the first project in Dorchester, and I was just religiously watching this thing with Rich as in his younger
I had a mustache.
days.
We all did that.
Quite a look. Go check it out. But it was just an incredible connecting experience for me. And roughly 10 years later, I won't bore you with the gory details, but I had the chance then to engage with the show in a business way. But I almost said, but not quite, almost said to my boss at the time, you don't have to pay me for this job. This is going to be great. Fortunately, I didn't say that. But aside from the sort of the personal effect that it has on all of us as viewers, I think to me, the hallmarks have always been, and Rich is just a terrific example of this, is that the guys on the show, they're all about craftsmanship. And as we have these amazing homes here in Wickford and North Kingstown more broadly, the craftsmanship that went into them when they were built and the craftsmanship that's needed to keep them beautiful and operating well going forward is critical. The second part of it is that This Old House has always celebrated certainly what has been old and historic, but it's also been a leader in celebrating what's new. And I've said this many times about Rich, but way back when, before radiant heat was a thing in this country, Rich was the one who came back from a trip to Germany and said, this is something we really need to talk about on the show. Just one example of sort of celebrating new technologies and science that I think broadens the way to think about what This Old House is, which is it's not just about old houses, it's about the right way and the new ways of doing things together with the old. But the other key thing is that, and this is a tagline that you can see sort of in the logo there, is that it really is a brand about dreams. Everybody does have a dream about their home, but the flip side of that is doing it the right way. And I think the relevant connection to what we're going to share about Ipswich tonight is that you're going to meet some homeowners there and the crew, including Rich, who undertook that renovation. And a key part of what they did was that those homeowners definitely had a dream. You'll hear about what they wanted to do, at least some of what they wanted to do. But doing it the right way was as critical as realizing the dream. And I think that sort of broad positioning is how the universal appeal, if you will, of what this brand is all about.
Can I just add to one thing?
Yeah, sure.
This brand would have gone the way of the dodo bird by now, but for Eric Thorkilsen. Eric Thorkilsen worked for Time before it was Time Warner, Time Inc. And he was in New Canaan, and he saw a caterer who made pies. And discovered her and gave her a TV show called Martha Stewart. And thankfully, he tired of the pies, and he decided to come to this old house. And so when he came, we were stuck in a rhythm there where it was, there was pressure that, oh, you keep on doing bigger houses. And, well, we have to do bigger houses to have enough content. If we just showed you how to do sheetrock every week, the show would have gone away. And so this dream thing has been part of it, where we were not afraid to try to throw an off-speed pitch, but it came from Eric, and so it's actually good to be back with my friend. It's I was making $700 an episode before Eric came into my life.
We got him all the way up to 1,200.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I did want to take one small collection.
All right, so let's jump in here, but a couple key points to keep in mind as we start to dive into Ipswich that hopefully are the relevant connections to all of us here in Wickford is that we're going to be talking about a first period house built in 1720, Gambrel style, of which we have some terrific examples in Wickford. The house that we'll see here in a minute is one of 3 that remain in Ipswich. So it's relatively rare in terms of that architectural style there. But it's a period house in an historic district with a historic commission, a lot of the same sort of factors that we have here. It also is gone through centuries of work, some of that good, some of it not so good. And so a part of the renovation, something I think all share, and the experiences we've had with houses here, is that you celebrate the good and you find ways to eliminate or minimize the not so good that detracts from what your overall home is all about. There are a lot of very interesting things to this house that relate to us here in terms of a post and beam structure. So many of our houses here have that as their bones. And while there's literally hundreds of things we could be talking about for this Ipswich house, we're going to focus a fair amount on that post and beam part of things, because I think there's a relationship to what we have here in our homes in Wickford. There's thousands, probably, or at least close to 1,000 different repairs and improvements that ultimately were made during the 12-month renovation of this house in Ipswich. But we're going to talk about a couple that are relatively common, but also typical of what we face here with older homes. And hopefully those will resonate with you as you have those same challenges in your own home. But I think the biggest thing that will come out of this, at least I hope so, is that in any kind of renovation, and it goes to kind of what our overall theme here is of balancing restoration with renovation, is that there needs to be a respect for the aspects of our home that are the ones to be preserved and celebrated. But at the same time, if there's new building to be done or renovation to be done, are there ways in which you can add into elements of that renovation and new build pieces that echo that history and celebrate the aspects of the materials or the design or some of the original intent of that house? So you'll see, I think, a fairly terrific example in this Ipswich house of what that's about. And by the end of tonight, when we stop talking here and get into this, you can judge whether that's been the case. But I think it's, to me, the main reason why we picked this house to talk about tonight, and hopefully how it relates to all of us here.
The format, instead of a bad PowerPoint presentation with slide after slide, we took pieces of the show in snippets, manageable snippets, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something that works. And so, and each on a particular subject. And so if there's, we're gonna have questions in between each one. So if there's something that you wanted to stop, you know, we'll do it right then in real time, I think. So, and we don't want it to drag on all night, but I think using the power of this, the way we shoot it in the camera, I think will help be a much more informative thing than just PowerPoints with static shots. So that's our format tonight.
Off we go.
Off we go.
So all of these words I've said more than once probably tonight, but on the left, and you'll see more of this, what we start with in terms of this 1720 beauty, and on the right, by the end of the 12 months, where we ended up. So we have three parts to the conversation tonight. And the first part is what we're calling celebrating the gem, which is the original structure, the Gambrel structure, which is a gem. And there are a couple different aspects to it that we're going to dive into. The first video is going to be kind of what the overall plan is for not only the gem, but sort of the rest of the property. Some issues that we dealt with in terms of things like the street being higher than the house, and get into water not being our friend, and a little bit about the gun stock. So let's get going.
Hey there, I'm Kevin O'Connor, and welcome back to This Old House and to our project here in Ipswich, Massachusetts, a first period home that sits right on the Ipswich River. Now, as you look at the home from the street side here, you can see that the building has grown, well, sprawled really over the years. And it has done it in a way that's not always in keeping with the original style of the house. Something that our architect, Benjamin Nutter, has an eye for and a plan for. Hey, Ben. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
So we work on a lot of old houses, although not a lot of first period houses. How'd we do? Did we pick a gem?
You did pick a gem.
Awesome.
This is a great example of a late first period house.
Okay.
1.5 story, very typical details. Have a center entrance door.
Yeah.
Flanking double hung windows to either side.
Okay.
Not quite symmetrical. Clapboard siding. Also very simple corner boards, cornice and rake trims around the roof. We have 2 dormers.
So these are all the details that you would expect to see on a first period home, what we would have had back in 1720.
Yes, it is, with one exception.
Which is?
And that is the Gambrel roof shape.
Ah.
Very few Gambrel roof structures built in the first period. Even fewer of them have survived to the 21st century.
Gotcha.
That makes it quite rare. There is one other element that's missing.
Uh-oh, hope it's not important. What is that?
Well, it is kind of important. It is, there's no center chimney.
Oh.
And there would have been, and there obviously has been removed at some point and replaced with the 2 chimneys on each gable end.
Gotcha. So from here, you can't tell that there's more house behind it, but there's actually plenty more.
Oh, there's very much more.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on what
Sure.
we've got out back.
And here we have the end of the house with a Gambrel roof shape.
Okay.
2 different roof slopes. Might have been done for aesthetic reasons, might have been done for functional reasons.
Well, I like the fact that we've got it if it makes the house a little bit more rare.
Oh, it absolutely does make it more rare.
All right.
And back here, we have originally a 1-story L.
Typical, right? They built a lot of these houses with the L's.
Exactly, very common. Could have been extra living space, maybe a sleeping loft and a bedroom. Could be a cobbler's shop,
Okay.
home industry, maybe some chickens.
Built at the same time as the house or typically after?
Absolutely built at the same time of the house.
How do you know that?
Well, the stone foundation is original to the house,
It was all, oh, gotcha.
all the way around.
And what do you think of it?
I think the 2-story addition that they put on it in the late 1800s is dreadful.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Oh, sorry.
What don't
Yeah.
you like about it?
Everything.
Okay.
One of the worst things is the way it dominates the main house.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually see that little peak of the L from the front, and
Yes,
really shouldn't. Right?
yes. And think about the water that gets trapped up there on that roof area. Terrible.
Anything else about the house give you concerns?
Oh yeah, you should see out back. Oh, I do. All right, so on this gable end, we have Georgian era rake trim. That's the wood trim that comes down each end of the roof.
Okay.
And along the back, we have these Victorian era columns with the little brackets at the top.
Yep.
Then we have these delightful brick piers that are not underneath those Victorian era columns. They have no footing underneath them.
But you can't blame them for building the porch. I mean, who would not want to take in the views of the
Oh,
river?
indeed.
And as we sort of turn this back corner I can already guess you do not like what you see here.
No. I think you could call that a great hodgepodge, right? And on top of that, look at the way the rear wall of the second floor they put on is plunked right in the middle of that porch roof. We know structurally that's got to be a problem.
So our L is not only too tall for the main house, but it's also too wide.
Yes.
Okay, you weren't kidding. You do have a long list of woes. How about
There-
solutions? What's the vision?
Well, we'll keep the footprint of the original house the same. We're not really touching the exterior shape of that. But what we'll return to is a one-story L off the back of the 1720 house. It'll sit mostly on the same footprint as the original L, except we'll bump the front wall 10 feet toward the road. This will become the primary entry into the house. The ridge of the L will then drop so that it comes in below the peak of the gambrel. Then off the end of the L, we'll add what we refer to as a barn element. It'll be 1.5 story with a simple gable roof. And around the back toward the river, we'll add a small deck between the barn element and the L.
So what we end up with is the original house out front, and then the L dutifully lower so that you don't see it from the street, and then that new barn you're talking about, that's far enough back that we really won't see that either.
Yes. So when you drive or walk up the street, the house you will see will look exactly like the 1720 house that was built 302 years ago.
That's very cool. So celebrate the gem that we've got.
Absolutely.
All right, I love the vision. Thank you very much.
Kevin, thank you.
And I'm actually going to get a nice class on these first period homes.
Very good. I'm going to go look for some gunstock posts inside.
Happy hunting.
Thank you.
Pretty interesting. Dropping that L just changed everything because it didn't stand so proud and so you're going to keep rolling right to it? Or?
Well, any questions about this? That this is just intended to be the
anybody
overview of
ever
kind of
see
what the
the
game
show?
plan is?
Were the dormers original to the music?
We think so, based on the framing, yeah.
So how much of a battle was that to get passed by the commission?
I don't remember that. I think they were pretty good about it. They were pretty blown away that we were going to. We brought in every expert. We just if we could do it this good, we did it 2 times better. So there wasn't any. It wasn't like some of these historical commissions that give you trouble for, something that seems like it could be functional. So they were great. They were terrific. Yes.
Were there homeowners living in it who had views about what they wanted?
The homeowners were very clear what they wanted. Helen and Bill were very clear. You'll meet them briefly in the end of the scene, but they knew what they wanted, which is half the battle with renovation. We come in with our experts. I remember we did a job in Acton a million years ago, and we bring in the historian on the paint color. We take the paint chips and we put it through a spectrometer and we find the original color, and we do the samples and we paint the building. And Seema, the woman who owned the house, and her husband, she said, "I hate it," but we weren't going to do that history. We had to balance the TV show part of it. But guess what? She grew to love it.
All right, so much more to come on this whole process, but we're going to dive in now to a scene that talks a little bit about dealing with some of the problems. And I know, based on what I see around town, that a lot of us have these same problems.
A drainage problem, which means we might have a rot problem. We won't know until these guys figure it out. Mark, Charlie, what's going on?
Hey, Kevin. Well, Kevin, as you can see, the street's higher than the house.
Never could.
Not the best way to build.
Okay.
On this side, it's about 4 inches below grade on the street. The other side's about 10 plus.
So anything that rains on that street running off and down into our house.
Comes right down. We're gonna probably take 5, 6 rows of clapboards off, investigate, do any repairs.
And there's no going into the basement or crawl space over here because we don't have one on this corner, do we?
Doesn't exist.
All right, so we just got to pull away and investigate?
Gonna pull some claps off. All right, Mark, this row right here, we're gonna start setting the nails through the clap so we can pull the rope behind it.
Sounds good.
And we're not actually saving any of these. These are not original claps, so we don't have to worry about saving them. And this will preserve the rest of the rows above. All right, we think this is loose enough to get this row out. And once you get that first one off, Mark, we can just go right behind these other ones.
Okay, gotcha.
exploratory demo, right? This is what we got to do to find out what's going on behind all this stuff.
That's right, Kevin. That's right. Perfect. Now go below it. Yep. Go right out to the corner, be done. Ready?
Yep. At least these are back prime, Charlie.
Yeah.
You didn't hold much water on it.
All right, let's just get this last row.
Tar paper tells you something, right, Charlie?
Somebody was here not too long ago. Lift it up and see what we have here. Oh, it's definitely old boards, that's for sure.
Look at the rot down here, Charlie.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yep, all the way across. It's eating out right there.
There's some masonry here for sure that somebody poured.
Yeah.
Well, I say we pull up at least this one board and see what we find.
All right.
Get under it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, go down further, I'll hold it out.
Get under that, Kev.
Come right over it. There she is. Oh, look at this. Yeah, Charlie. Not even a sill. No sill. Studs are right to the concrete. The studs look original, but this concrete, I don't know, Mark, what do you think, 20 years old anyway?
Yeah, that's got to be 20 years anyway.
Yeah, so my bet is that there was a sill, it was completely rotted. Whoever did these repairs took out the rot, poured some concrete right under the existing studs.
And this is all rotted away right there, Charlie. So what's the fix for that?
Well, believe it or not, this fix shouldn't be that bad. We're going to take some pressure treated. We're going to probably go up at least two high, two 2x high, cut the rot out of the existing 2x4s in the wall. But we're only going to do sections at a time, so it's not like we have to carry this whole side of the house and put some real weight on it. And if we have to, we're going to pull some more boards up and sister beside the existing studs, some new 2x pressure treated, and then once that's all down, patch it back in with boards.
Maybe solve this drainage problem once and for all?
Once and for all. Original plan had a stone wall in place of this fence. Would have been expensive, ran past the house about 12 feet. We have a better solution, it's going to be cheaper.
Okay, so let's see. What are we looking at here? Bottom of the house here and the road all the way up here.
Yeah, the architect drew this up not knowing what we had below grade. So this is the studded wall that we have, and we exposed the bottom of the studs and we saw all the rot.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and this is the boards that were on the outside of the house.
Okay.
So since this is the street grade, our new grade is going to be higher than the street, so it'll actually drain back towards that.
And then what are we going to do? Once we fix the rotted studs, what are you going to do to protect this wall?
We'll put some pressure treated plywood in against the new framing, waterproofing, a drainage mat, and then to match the existing house, which is a granite on the foundation, Mark has this.
Wait, what? This here? This is going to be the veneer?
This is going to be the veneer against the house.
This here, you're saying, is granite?
Well, this is why I love these water management problems, because we can use today's technology in the drainage mat and in the waterproofing membrane. But the twofold here is this granite. We get the aesthetic value out of it, but we also get the toughest protection we can have against the water.
Sheds the water, never rots, and it's going to look great.
Exactly.
And we're going to support it with a piece of stainless steel angle that will be bolted to the house, and the granite will sit right on top, never go anywhere.
And if this is our new grade, Charlie, what's all underneath here?
We're going to put all new stone in down below grade, all the way from the other side of the house. We're going to have a drainage pipe, which will go to a 2,000-gallon tank we have.
Which will be in the front yard. I like it. All right, thank you, Mark. We should
Okay.
probably report this to Bill, the homeowner.
Yeah, let's tell them.
All right. Guess that's
So that also reminds me about the role that we feel we offer to not just the viewing public, but to the contracting public. Meaning that technique to sort of change the grade and use granite to do that, I'm not sure a lot of people would know to do that. They would just put more concrete in and say, it's going to last for another 20 years, pay me, and I'm out the door. So we feel our responsibility to sort of do it right, but to also to say, this is a better way to do it, so we're teaching that entire contract. Because a lot of times people become a contractor and they get a pickup truck and they work for somebody for a little while and then just go out and know what they know how to do. So we felt our role changed. It happened about 10 or 12 years in that we just felt that we needed to just, let's find the right way to do it and always show the right way. The marketplace can figure out how to do it cheaper. We want to show the right way, because people will all complain, oh, those projects are too big for us. Well, we're talking about dreams, but we're also showing how to do it right. And this reminded me that this is, we want to teach not just the viewer. It's nice if we teach both, the consumer, the viewer, and the contractor, because then at least they know that, oh, I saw that, and it becomes a better way. Because a lot of times, what do you think? When some contractor tells you something, how they're going to do it, they say, I don't know if I believe that. So go ahead, sir.
No, it's a great point, and it's something I should have said before about Rich and all the guys on the show is that, they are craftsmen, they've had their own careers in the contracting industry, but at their heart, they're teachers. And I think it's part of what has made the brand and the show so successful is that the audience reacts to that kind of authentic information and coming from people that really care. So this next chapter on our gem, the last chapter actually in this segment about our gem, could be under the heading of Details Matter.
So that probably would have been hidden. And then you've got the gunstock post here in the corner. Smooth face, decorative beads, so that was probably exposed. Well, we've got another one of these that will be exposed, but it's damaged. So we've called in a specialist to give us a hand. Hey, Matt, nice to see you again.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing all right. So you've helped us out in the past, that beautiful newel post you turned for us and some other things.
Thank you.
And as a preservation carpenter in Ipswich, you are the man. You see a lot of this stuff.
We do. I've worked on several houses in the area and see a lot of the old details, which is very exciting and it's fun to look at.
Well, we're glad you're going to help us with these details. And can you explain this idea, the name, and the reason behind the gunstock post?
Yeah, so the gunstock post, in its basic form, it's a timber frame post, narrow at the bottom, flared at the top, similar to the shape of a gunstock of a rifle. Hence the
So the
gunstock.
butt of the gun back here has got that
Exactly.
flare.
Yep,
Okay.
similar shape. And the reason for that has to do with the joint up here. This is called an English tying joint, and it connects the post, the top plate, and the tie beam.
So if I understand this correctly, we've got a top plate right here going this way, and then this is the tie beam going this way, which sits on top of it.
Correct.
And that means that we need to have a tenon coming out on this side, up to the top plate, and then a second tenon to grab the tie beam.
Exactly.
Huh, okay. So it's actually got a lot of function to it.
It does. It's a fairly complex joint.
All right, well, you're here to help us with a little bit of a fix. What was the problem?
Yeah, this cork bead was split out. Some kind of damage, maybe something hit it. Big chunk taken out of it. Or what I did, cut out the damaged area. Glued in a new piece of eastern white pine, same species. I let the glue dry, and we're ready to start shaping it. So first thing, we'll just kind of clean up the glue a little bit. Now we get the glue cleaned up, we're going to take this smoothing plane. We're going to plane this flush with the side of the post.
She removes quite a bit of material.
It does. We set it pretty aggressive. They'll cut it pretty quick. And as I get close to the finish, I'll pull the blade back, a little more refined, get really dial it in, so it's nice and flush.
And that's the same way they would have been doing it 300 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. They'd do this before they put the building up. They would take the hand plane and smooth these timbers out, put the detail on, and then put the whole frame up.
And it looks like the old timer actually left his old plane too.
He did. Sometimes the old tools are just as good or better than the new ones. So I'll give that to you. And now I'm just going to refine it, get it nice and flush with a more refined hand plane. There's a little more thin shavings.
See one of those. Paper thin, it's actually translucent. Yep.
I think we're ready for the bead. Do you a favor, mind grabbing that beading plane right there?
So this is the one you're going to use for that. So profiles right there that we're looking at. And there's your blade right there that's going to make the cut.
So it's called a wooden molding plane. This one is a bead. Comes in a variety of sizes, and that's how they make moldings for machinery. This plane fits pretty nicely to the bead on our post.
Wow.
So we'll use that to shape our new piece of wood.
I definitely want to see that happen.
All right, here we go. So we usually start at the top. So I'm going to kind of work my way down the piece.
Matt, I would have started at the bottom and worked my way up. Why'd you work at the top down?
Yep, so the reason for that, we like to establish that quirk. It gives the plane a little track to ride in.
And then once you've got the track, now you can go
Then
up.
off you go. Yep.
Like that?
Yeah, right now it's pretty good to go. Probably a little bit of sandpaper. We could take some of that fuzz off, but at this point, it's shaped.
Yeah.
It's matching the post.
Shape and match for sure. I mean, look at that. That is just sort of uniform. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're working with the homeowners, how do you typically dress it up in terms of the look? Because this is obviously such an apparent patch.
Right. So there's two options you could do. You could just leave it and show off the repair. Say it's part of the history,
Right.
which is one great option. Another one is to try and stain it to match. We'll do that a lot on doors that we patch, things like that. So I believe in this case we're going to stain to match. So
Gotcha. So sand around, stain, bring home one.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that might get a little darker than the other side. But
Awesome. Well, great lessons, Matt. Always good to have you back. Thank you for the help.
Thank you. Appreciate
and
it.
some real artistry there. Appreciate it.
So when
I
I
was
first,
replaced by the router.
when I first saw that scene, I was thinking, wow, this is a timber that, is basically more of a tree than a finished piece of lumber. But the old timers were putting that bead detail on it because that was going to be what was visible and exposed. So I started walking around, my old house, and I just couldn't get over all of the bead detail in the post and beam in that house. It was just, you really felt like, boy, they had a lot to do then, and living was tough and everything else, but they were putting this bead detail on these posts in this structure. It was really pretty incredible. Okay, we're going to move along here. There'll be a little bit more later about what gets done to the gym, but now we're going to talk about the L, because there's a lot happening here, and as I was saying earlier tonight, this marriage of old and new, old materials and new materials, and sort of new design with arcing back to the old design is a central theme for this project, but also I think for all of us as we think about the houses here in this amazing place. So
Just before we go into it, is think about, you're going to see this as it goes through, but I want to just tip you off to look for it. They were trying to build these buildings with barely a nail. Barely. The nails are the most expensive thing and the hardest to get. So everything they did was thinking about how to use geometry to make pieces notched together, so because they didn't have nails. And so, and that's what, as you go through, you'll see as we now take it apart and then put it all back together again, it'll all go back like a perfect puzzle, because they thought about it. It is, every time you drove a nail, you split the wood and make it almost unusable again. And this was always thought about how to have the least amount of metal. And I think we did a really good job showing this, video shooting it. So.
On here, I mean, I see, if I look at this frame, I see as at least 4, maybe 5 different iterations over the years that have gone on with this.
Yep. The first L is this section right here.
Right.
Could have gone on at 1721, it could have been 1725, because it's all hand hewn. The second iteration emulated that first one. They used the same rafter heel connection.
Yep.
But then the third iteration, they changed completely into stick framing. And then this whole second floor is the fourth iteration.
Right. If you look down the end of the gable down there, you can see under that window, there's a rafter that runs
Yep.
from that outside wall
Yep.
up to this wall right here. This is a ridge beam that
Yeah.
actually held a shed roof that went down.
You can see the mortise for that shed rafter.
Right, so now the homeowner wants the ceiling height in the kitchen, which is going to be down here,
Yep.
higher. Have you got a plan?
Yeah, I thought originally we were going to lift up this original L as a single building and then fix everything and elevate and put a post foot on each of the posts. But I think we'll take it apart peacefully, fix everything on the bench, and then hand it back to you guys to put it where you want to put it.
I like the idea of that. You're going to take it apart, you're going to save as much of it as you can,
Yep.
and we'll throw away the junk.
There's a lot to save here. I think it's worthwhile.
I agree. I love these old houses.
I do too.
I just love the line from Tommy, save what we can and throw away the junk.
I like that he's gonna take it apart peacefully.
Peacefully. Yeah. So let's keep going.
Hey there, I'm Kevin O'Connor, and welcome back to This Old House here in historic Ipswich, Massachusetts, where we are working on this Gambrel Colonial. Now, the front part of the house right here, that was built in 1720. But then this L off of the back, well, we think that it was built in stages over the course of the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. Now, when we got here, the L was 2 stories, bedrooms up top, kitchen and living space down below. But originally, it was just 1 story, and that's what the homeowners want to go back to. So that's going to require some dismantling.
That's a beauty.
And to preserve those original materials, we have called in an expert. Aaron Sturgis rebuilds timber frame buildings in Maine. He did some research with Tommy last week, and then they came back to tag each of the antique timbers. Some were not good enough to keep, but the good ones were tagged with a brass plate. They go back to Aaron's shop for repairs. The second story of the L was removed, and now Aaron is back to carefully dismantle the frame. Cedric, how are you? Tommy, Aaron, how you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Boy, this is quite a bit of industry you got going on here. I hope you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think we do. So the main house and the L was done in an English tradition of joinery called the scribe rule, which means roughly that each element was scribed to its partner. That's why you have marriage marks. And only one piece goes in one place within the frame. So it can't go anywhere else because it was scribed together.
Okay.
So when we take a timber frame apart that's scribed, we have to tag every element so that we know where it goes in the frame when we put it back together. So right here, we've exposed the connection of the first L into the main house, and there's a tenon there. I'll show you. Now, I've got to pull the wedge out from up above, but you can see that I have movement there.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason I do is that I've loosened this wedge just the tiniest bit, but that wedge used to hold this timber frame tight to this timber. And the reason why that's flexible is there's no pin in this.
So wedge mortise meaning stick the mortise in the tenon. It's got a little bit of slop, and then use the wedge to lock it in place.
Exactly right. And this comes out relatively easily because it's been here a long time and it's probably shrunk a little bit. So I've added a structural screw in the end grain, then you have a lever.
Yes.
And you can pull it out. That's an original wedge, and now I can lift this up. I can't lift it yet because the tie beams are still on.
Right. So everything by hand, a lot of work with
Yep.
these mortise and tenons, although so was making nails, and I suspect they were expensive. You make them one at a
The
time.
nails were the most expensive piece of the build.
Yeah.
Because they were, they were expensive metal and they had to be hand done.
So you've tagged everything, so we've got a layout. Tommy, I know you've inspected some of these. Sadly, not everything can be saved, right? Some of these are sort of beyond.
No, Aaron and I
stage?
went over a lot of stuff, and all of the outside beams like this, we're gonna save, these beams here, but a lot of these joists are in really bad shape. I mean, look at this one right here.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna throw them out. The homeowner wants to save a lot of this stuff. They're just not gonna be used structurally, made decoratively somewhere.
So maybe just applied to a ceiling or hanging
Right.
out there.
Yep.
But I guess the good news is that the big ones, your beams, your posts, most of them can be saved?
Yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
absolutely.
Yep,
All right. So we can get back to dismantling.
sounds good.
Sounds like a plan.
It should pop right out. See how easy that is? So there's that joist is out.
I can do that.
Oh, yeah, that comes right up.
That's one of the bigger posts right there. That is hardwood. It's heavy. Got it. Nice.
Put these in the save pile.
Yep.
Nice.
Look at that. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
All right, so we have the half dovetail joint here. There's no pegs, no nails at all. Come right out.
All right. Oh, look at that,
Here's
huh?
the pocket. The joint is still really, really good. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
So, where's all this going?
This will go up to my shop in New Hampshire,
To be done with what?
and we're going to do all the repairs that are necessary. And then we have to fabricate some post feet and stuff like that because we're going to elevate the height.
Very cool. I'd love to see that. Can
Come
we?
up anytime.
All right.
Have your attention with this? So, can you imagine the kind of time and work it took to do that with essentially hand tools? And to fit all those pieces together, it's just incredible. And for these guys then to so carefully take it apart for the new life that's going to come. Let's take a look.
You have all the pieces brought back.
Yep.
You were brought them up to your shop, showed Kevin what you were doing. But explain to me what we've done here. I know
Yeah.
we've added some length to the building somehow and somewhere. But these are all the old pieces we're going to reuse and some new ones to it. So what do you got?
What we're looking at, Tom, are some tie beams here on my left and the two plates. These are the two top plates where the two eave walls are.
Yeah.
You can see the end of that has an under-squinted scarf joint. That's the little angle.
Right?
See how that new wood is
I like
fitted
that
into the
little-
old?
yeah.
So that doesn't allow it to hinge open, and it's pinned together, so all that allows us to extend the length of this top plate, because we moved the entire L
Everything
further
comes
into the
this way.
house.
Yeah. So you need the length, and obviously you couldn't get it from the old wood.
Right. So we always use new wood with the old. You can see the difference, but it works out perfectly. It all mellows
Adds
out.
to the character.
Yeah, we're not trying to hide the repair.
Right.
These tie beams are all different sizes, that's how they were, but a couple of them have a couple notes. One, look how curved this one is. It's
Yeah, I
super
remember
curved.
that one being right across
Yep.
the space
Yep,
there.
and that's going right back in the way it was. The next one, pretty straight, but going right back. They all going back into their original location. This one was broken, so we have
Oh, I
a
remember
fix
that.
in
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So this is your repair right here.
That's right, that's an oak spline, and it's pinned, and it crosses over the break. It's about 6 inches deep.
Oh, so you went right down into basically a big slot or a dado.
Yep.
Did you go all the way through?
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't have to, and you don't see it from anywhere in the kitchen,
Perfect.
you know?
This one you got a piece of steel. in
This
it.
one we did steel because it had so much plumber's rod in it that we had to do something a little, and it's a lot smaller than this one.
Yeah.
So we opted for a thin kerf. This is an angle iron.
Right.
It's a 1/4-inch angle iron, so we cut into it, set it in, take the bend out of it because it was really sagged.
Yeah.
It still sags somewhat, but then this structural screw keeps it in place and creates.
Well, the nice thing about the angle iron, it will straighten it in two directions.
Right.
It'll straighten it this way, but
Exactly.
it'll also straighten it a little bit that way.
As much as we could get out of it.
Yeah, so you think about the different sizes of these beams and how long they've been holding this floor up.
Oh, yeah, they had a floor on it before. They won't now.
No, it's basically all for show.
It's just to keep the ambiance in the kitchen with the original material.
right. So to
The
get
posts are around us. We've got one post standing already. And the others, so the original timber frame, L, has been repaired. We'll stand it up and put it all together and tie it into the house.
Well, the fact that we're reusing as much of this as we can.
Yeah, me too.
So this is our starting point.
Yep. So, Dave, you're gonna stay with that post. You can see how we come into that mortise.
So this whole beam was right back where it was,
Yep.
except it's a little higher.
It's a little bit higher. You can see it on the
There's
floor.
our height difference right there.
Yep. So set your KD to that mark and then plumb it from there.
Okay. Some of those timbers that have sort of a bend to them is because that was the limb of the tree, which was just used the way it grew, and they didn't try to straighten it. It's just remarkable stuff that was done.
Do you know what he meant by plumber's rod? Is that like a leaking bathroom?
No, this was just, all these buildings never had plumbing. It was unheard of. There was a privy outside, and it was a well that you carry water. So then plumbing was invented in 1890 when the Iron Age came. So, all of a sudden, plumbers now went in and forgot about structure, but they had to get from A to B, and so that's, it's sort of a dig or an aside to the plumbers. So I didn't want you to miss that.
When did nails become less expensive?
Well, the Iron Age, you know, the Industrial Revolution, you were mass producing everything in the late second part of the 19th century.
So in Whitford, we have nails in homes that were built in the 1770s.
Correct, but they would have been hand forged. They would have been hand forged and banged. They would be hand done. It wasn't until you could mass produce them, you know, in the early part of the 1900s, or you know, no, I'm sorry, late part of the 1800s would be when you
So the
first.
first generation homes would have had a few nails, and the
Yeah.
second generation.
And there would always be those cut nails. Remember the cut nails?
Yeah.
They were just pieces of metal that somebody banged into a form and then flattened them at the end, and so they would use as few as they could for both availability and cost.
So you said indoor plumbing came in around the 1890s. We have a bunch of houses in town built right around 1880. Were those built without indoor plumbing?
Sure.
Would be your guess?
Yeah, meaning the you know, it literally, these first period houses, it was a privy in the back, it was a shed, right, it was a well somewhere, and somebody carried water up to what represented the kitchen. There was always sort of a wood stove there, but, you know, we'll talk about how much it took to heat these places. They had no insulation, and, you know, we used cords and cords of wood. We take so much for granted about what life was like in this agri-based society that we were in. You worked all day to just stay alive and stay warm and to stay fed and crazy. And then on top of it is this artistry that we see here. You know, I was taken by this renovation in the wrong hands of a low bid remodeler. All that wood would have been gone. It just would have been, just gone. And then this is art. It's art, and and it means that, you know, another 100 years from now, people will walk in. You'll see at the end of this thing, it's art in every way because we've hidden technology behind it, but everything you see makes you feel like you were in 350 years ago. So,
and that is a great intro to what's coming next.
At this point, you get a good sense of the project. Up front, we've got the original house, the 1720 Gambrel. And then we've got the timber frame L here in the middle, coming back to our addition. Now, this original timber frame, which was just put back in place thanks to Aaron and his team, that was originally 1 story back in 1720. At some point, they bumped it up to 2 stories, and our homeowners, they want to take it back down to 1 story, but to have a cathedral ceiling. So they're going to reuse those timbers to create the cathedral ceiling, but it's not going to be structural. We're actually going to have to build a roof over the entire thing. So that means we need some steel. A 35-foot steel beam fabricated off-site going between these 2 structures. And the other day, Tommy and Charlie padded them out with 2x12s on either side. And now it's going to be flown in as soon as we find some way to get the steel posts in.
All right, our first steel column is coming in. It's actually a 3-inch by 5-inch with a plate screwed or welded to the top. Now this is pre-cut to the length, it's a little over 22 feet long. And he's got to position it right because that plate on the top of the column has to go parallel with the beam, and we can't turn it once it's in. So that should just fit through the structure. Gonna come right down through the hole.
Ed,
Okay.
come on down. All right, come on down easy.
There's a lot of coordination going on here.
Good.
And bringing it right down. He's being controlled by radio by Jay up there, telling the crane operator what to do. You can see that coming down nice and slow, nice and easy.
he's a gamer.
Going right in. Now that's precision for you, boy. Look at that. This post should have a base put on the bottom of it. But what they did is they left the square base off the bottom, which is going to be the foot to this column. And that allows this column to come through a much smaller rectangular hole. Jay, I think your guy knows what he's doing there. Look at that, huh? Nice.
Down easy.
A little bit of coordination right there. So the radio guy and the operator. Beautiful work. So now we'll just weld that.
This is our second post right here. It is hollow, so it only weighs about 200 pounds, but those 2 posts have got to be able to carry a steel beam that weighs over a ton. This is our beam right here. It's 35 feet long, and each side's been padded out with 3 2x12s. That makes it easy to marry our roof rafters to right here. And then on top, there's a 2x10. It's been cut on an angle both sides. This matches the pitch of the roof. The whole thing weighs over 2,000 pounds, and that's partly because it's so long, but it's also going to carry the entire weight of the roof as well as a full snow load. So they're calculating about 15,000 pounds for this thing to have to carry.
There's our spud wrench, and it's tapered, so we can line up the holes easier. Got it.
Look at that.
Good. That's it, right there. All right, I'm on. We're good. We know we measured it. The heights of the columns are right, but just for the heck of it, check it with the level. Right on. Perfect.
All right, that is satisfying to
If
see
it was
that
not
beam
level,
go.
we wouldn't have shown it.
This ridge beam is actually doing a lot. It's actually carrying the load of the roof,
We don't know.
but it's also keeping the walls from bowing out.
All right, and our roof line is going to look like what?
Right over here, we put a mock-up. You see a 12-pitch gable that'll drop on the steel beam onto structural lumber on top of these old beams.
Right here in the middle.
Right here in the middle. And on the outside wall will be a 4-pitch shed roof, right where that 2x4 shows it dropping on it.
So underneath here, we're going to look up to the bottom of the shed, and then underneath here, this is all cathedral, so we'll look up to the bottom of that roof line.
Right, and underneath the cathedral, you're going to see all the old boards and the old rafters. So it's really going to be a cathedral room right here. It's going to be beautiful.
Yep, making some good progress.
Right, and next time we're here, this will be all framed up.
I love it.
Moving along good.
All right,
Keep going.
should we take a look?
The original house from 1720 ends right here. In fact, this is the old original exterior sheathing, and Charlie, homeowners fell in love with it. We're keeping it, but we're also going to keep it exposed.
They love it. They don't want to put plaster over it. As you can see, we have a window opening there. We don't have the boards to patch it in, so they had a good idea of putting a plate shelf in there. We use all the leftover lumber that we have from other parts of the house that we salvaged.
All right, so that's a unique look. We also saved all of these, the rafters from upstairs, hand hewn, some of the original bark still right there, all crooked and curved. I mean, these things are terrific.
And we also have 2x6 rafters also that infilled all of these.
Yep, and that's because all of these are going to go back in?
They are. Believe it or not, this started back in August. We're standing up in the attic with Bill and Helen, the homeowners, and Helen looked up and said, gee, too bad we couldn't reuse these roof boards and make them part of the trim detail in the new kitchen cathedral ceiling. Thought for a second, I'm like, yeah, we can do that. So these are the boards I salvaged that were right above us in the old structure.
I mean, these things are awesome. Look how wide some of them are and full of patina, right? So you got the nail holes and you've got the iron sort of leaching through right there. So how do you complete the look to make it feel like it's authentic?
And that's why we painted the plywood black, so when you're looking through these holes, you know, from down here 10 feet or so, you're gonna look up. It's gonna look like the old roofing.
All right. So what do you do about something like that?
Well, this will show you here. So this will represent what a rafter will look like. And all of our seams will fall in a center. So if you hold that like that, I'll get another one that'll show you. Got it right there.
So this is what we're going to be looking up at from down here on this floor.
That's right. So let's say another seam was here.
Yeah.
And that's where we could always have a cut.
Okay. So we're going to have to do a little bit of piecing this whole thing together. So you've got material on site, everything you need. How are you going to do installation?
Believe it or not, I have to start out where all the centers of the rafters are going to be, so we're going to snap some lines. We're going to start with all of these heavy beams here, which will be our hand-hewn beams. We'll line up on those, and then our 2x6 rafters will infill.
I'll give you a hand.
Let's go. All right. All right, now we start putting this puzzle together. We have all our chalk lines showing the centers of all of our rafters, which will be all of the break points for all of the edges of our sheathing.
He shouldn't be allowed to use a nail gun.
All right, so more on this in a little bit, but you sort of get the idea of where we're headed. So now we move to part 3. And happily, you'll be able to see my partner here in a lot of these scenes, because this is where a lot of his expertise comes into play.
You can all go to the men's and ladies' room now.
But we're calling it the 21st century because this is very much kind of the state of the art for a lot of these things. But we start out with first a little history.
I just spent 20 minutes in the basement looking for it. I looked everywhere.
You know, every time we come to a new project, I always take you to the basement, take you through the history, you know, review that it was coal-fired, and then it was oil, then it was gas. When this building was built in the first period, it was only one fuel of choice, and that was wood. And this was really the first period to try to heat homes in America, and they worked hard at it. You know, this is the raw material. This is a cord of wood. The cord of wood measures officially 4 feet high, 4 feet deep, and about 8 feet long, which is right to here. So if we take these two together, bring them together,
You get about a cord.
it's about a cord.
It's a lot of wood.
All right, that's a lot of wood. But a house like this originally could go through 20, maybe 30 cords of wood, because they were heating the building and also cooking on it. So
Spent
it
your
was-
whole life just cutting wood.
That's all they did. Cut, stack, cut, stack, cut, stack. And also the buildings were interesting. They were built around the chimney massing, this big hunk of masonry and fireplace would come up through the center of the building. Then they would surround it with a poorly insulated building with barely any windows. And we have evidence here that there was a center chimney on this original building right there. Since that time, they've taken it down, put stairs in the middle, and put fireplaces at the end. So that's long gone from this building.
And how are we heating it today?
Let me show you.
Finally, back to the basement.
That's right. And this is the original basement. You can see the foundation wall here. There was an opening that blocked it in here. You can see the history of some of the fuels. This is the old oil lines. There must have been a tank right here. And right here, we're right at the base of where that original chimney massing used to be on that side of the wall going up through the building. That's all gone.
This is under the gambrel going this way, and then this is under the L.
Right. And they have a dirt floor on this side, no basement over there. And then they wanted some modern conveniences, you know, like electricity. They wanted some water. They had actually a city gas right here. This would have been low-powered gas that would have been used for lighting before electricity. And then this chimney here would have been for the original oil or coal furnace. It probably had a heater for the kitchen upstairs. And what we've got now is a gas-fired hot water heating boiler that has some poorly installed baseboard all around the building.
Much more modern than a fireplace, but for what it is, that's looking pretty tired too.
That's right. You know, considering what we're doing in this building, I think this thing is going to go the same place as that original chimney.
Go on. Okay. Upgrade. Here we come.
A little more history here.
What I love about these old houses is to imagine how those early settlers dealt with the utilities, those things we take for granted. You know, like how do they heat the building? Or how do they get potable fresh water into the building? This week we discovered a really cool artifact. So we called in the experts. Suzanne Chereau, you are a historical archaeologist. How are you?
Hi, Richard. I'm good. Yeah, I'm checking out this feature.
Yeah, tell us what you do. Tell us what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a historic archaeologist. I've been working in New England for over 30 years. We work on old house sites just like this.
Yeah.
Most of the time there's nothing left of the house. It's just the ruins, just the foundations. But we do find artifacts like this.
So take us through. We're looking at a cistern, right?
Yeah, I believe we're looking at a cistern, definitely handmade brick, so telling us it was built in the 18th century.
A cistern just collects water. Right?
It just collects water, so it wasn't a well.
So they might have had this to collect rainwater and store some water.
Definitely, maybe for drinking, but definitely to wash, do laundry, household chores, feed the animals, that sort of thing.
So take us through the cistern. How do you build this thing?
This one was 2 bricks thick, and it looks like here the portion that was underground here, there's definitely charring and burning on the outside of the bricks, which tells us that they look like they were reused from like a chimney or a fireplace. And the fact that there is no what we call builder's trench, which would have been darker soil, would indicate to us that it was constructed from the opposite side, and that these bricks were placed, put in place against either fill or natural subsoil. And this was definitely mortared all the way down to the bottom. There's where I've drawn this thin line just to kind of delineate between the natural subsoil. It's a very hard packed, kind of glacial, granular, sandy soil. And then above that, it looks like they put a very thin course of parging, to make it waterproof at the bottom, to prepare the bottom surface. It's sat right on the natural subsoil.
And there's a big opening at the top.
Right. That would have been for a trap door, say in the porch, and either, just manually put a bucket down to collect the water that they needed for whatever chore, or at some point had a crank.
Yeah, so there would have been a lot of things going on in this little small yard, right? You would have had a well, you would have had a privy or two, a vegetable garden, you got the cistern, some outbuildings, and a lot of things to place in
They
this
had to
small
spatially arrange everything so
right,
that it
right
worked
order.
and hopefully didn't make them sick. Bacteria wasn't well known back then, but they still kind of knew what made them sick and what didn't.
It must be a really fun job, actually. Imagine how people lived.
It is.
Can we look inside?
Definitely.
All right.
Okay, so we would call this a bottle-shaped cistern.
Aptly named.
Aptly named, yes, primarily because of the shape at the top, and we would have this opening that would have had, a cover.
Okay.
So that's the name.
I've got a camera and a light. Let's see what it looks like down inside there. And I want you to hold this. You can, let's see, we got. I'll tell you one thing, I'm amazed. It just looks like it's still almost brand new.
All right, there's definitely parging in the inside, just like we thought there'd be for the waterproofing.
See what we got down the bottom? So it's about 7 feet deep, a little bit of debris at the bottom, but that would be expected after all this time. It's actually amazing the kind of shape it's in. It's crazy.
It's well made.
It was.
It turned into a wonderful wine
And I see the
cave.
evidence of a lid pipe right here.
Yep, so that would have gone inside the basement of the house.
So as the water level came up, it would have forced water over the top of that, what they call a crown, and it would have allowed it to draw water inside.
Yep, spigot inside.
Looks like it went in yesterday.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
And Bill and Helen said they were it became almost they loved having this in their house, this connection to the, how people lived. If you don't have water, you don't live, so.
All right, so now we're going to move into truly the 21st century, and how do you do it in a old house like this without having it all be visible?
This house was already 202 years old when the very first air conditioning system was installed in a theater in Los Angeles. Now the homeowners would like to have air conditioning, good air conditioning, and better heating than just fireplaces. And in a first period house like this, adding the mechanicals is really a conundrum wrapped in a puzzle. Now the old part of the building is really hard to run the ductwork. Here in the new part, it's not much easier. We're sitting in the kitchen. Now we're right above the basement that is finished, and it has pretty low headroom as it is, and there's a fair amount of structure, so we can't come over this way. Look up above us. This wants to be left wide open, not an attic, so there's no room to hide the ductwork here. We've got glass on this side, glass on this side, and no real way to run the ductwork coming up and down. But there is one place. Look at this. We're going to find a place to hide our trunk right in here. So here it comes right here. This is an oval duct. It'll be our full supply for this zone of our mini duct system. So in the original pantry right here, we needed to get our ductwork to upstairs into this building. So Charlie dug out all the rubble underneath these old joists, original joists. Here you can see that oval duct again right here coming along. We also ran our drain lines for the bathroom. And you can see right here we were able to hide them both inside this padded wall. Not much space. So up here in the original bedroom, you can see that our trunks have run up here to this future bathroom. Hey, James.
Hey, Richard.
James handling all of our HVAC this time.
So the last part of the piece of the puzzle is these sound attenuators. Each one is going to have its own branch, and it has this cloth core right here that actually allows the aspiration and it keeps the system nice and quiet.
That's right.
So we only have a couple of these per each room and one central return for the entire system.
So you don't need individual returns.
Nope.
Now, we've used these before, but this house is really a perfect candidate.
Exactly.
All right, so you got your trunks in, and now we just got to get the last mile.
So we already cut in all the takeoffs to the main trunks here. So now all we have to do is take our sound attenuator tubing and then the interlocks here together. So once this clicks in, we're good to go with that. And then seal it up with tape so you don't get any air loss.
Now, the science of this system couldn't be more straightforward. You just need the right number of attenuators, outlets, to match the load of the building. Now, typically, that's what, 1 for every 10 by 12 area about?
Exactly, Richard. And then it depends what you want to see in the room. You can get pretty much any species of wood, and then
Yeah.
you can stain them to match. They can be painted, whatever you want.
And really disappear.
Yep.
Now, we were talking earlier about doing one more cool thing that we've done before. We've taken some of the old boards and trimmed them in. We could actually take the attenuator, paint it black, and then mount it behind, and then drill at an angle to make it look like an old knot, and just use a rasp. So that it would be quiet comfort you just don't see. Pretty cool. Pretty interesting.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So that's the inside. Our house, for example, is right in the middle of Main Street. You got people walking by 2 to 3 sides. What do you do about the equipment, the handlers, and the heat pumps?
You mean outside the building? Actually, we have a piece, I think this segment is going to talk about the new inverter heat pumps. I don't want to steal the thunder from this piece, but in the old days, you had a limit of like 49 or 50 feet between the outdoor unit and the indoor unit, which meant if you had a unit on this side of the house, you sort of had to have the condenser on that side, and you were limited for operation. As these inverter heat pumps came along, and I'm going to give a little more details as you watch it, the compressor never really shuts off. It's moving that refrigerant all the time. It isn't trying to stop and start like the old ones were, which means you can run the refrigerant lines much longer. So now you could go 150 feet, which means you could go all of them to the back corner or to whatever corner. So it's unlocked a whole bunch of things for HVAC. We were always locked into this terrible. That's why you see some of these buildings, you say, why would they ever do that? Well, it's because inside the building, they couldn't get an air handler on the other side, so they had to put it on that side, and they were locked up. So I think this is the piece that we will show it.
Well, it's comfortable inside, Richard, so you've done your job.
Thank you very much. This is actually the heart of our heating system, heating and cooling system. These are condensers. They look like just like any other condenser, but they are cold weather inverter heat pumps.
All right, but they look like air conditioning units.
Absolutely. They are principally the same, but they go a step farther. As a cold weather inverter heat pump, it means that the compressor is very precise to find the right amount of refrigerant to put in. The fan changes, and what that means is even if it's a 0 degree day outside, or even a minus 10 degree day, or minus 20, you still can find heat outside and deliver it through refrigerant piping inside the building. Conventional placement of these condensers would have been that we would have, since we have an air handler at that end of the building, we would have the condenser right there. And the limit always was for the refrigerant piping to be about 50 feet between indoor and outdoor. So these modern units, we can run the line sets a little bit longer and hide them right here. But we have to be cautious when we do that we don't constrict the airflow that has to come in here. So you don't want to have a privacy fence so close. You want free air to be able to come in to make them run efficient. Let me show you inside.
Ooh, tight little spot back here.
So this is one of our mechanical systems right here. You can see it's a mini duct system. It has a blower unit right here that sends air out to the duct. But here's our refrigerant line sets that connect to our outside cold weather inverter heat pumps. Comes to right here, there's a coil, and the air blows across it and either gets heated or cooled. And then this will just modulate all the time. Now, that's the air delivery. We also want to condition the air. So any good comfort system like this has got an air filter like this right here. The other is fresh air makeup into the building, and you can see that we have fresh air from an energy recovery ventilator. It's got humidification. You can see there's a wand that puts the steam right into here, and it'll just put a precise little piece of steam into that return air as necessary. So in the last piece, this is a hot water heating coil with these 2 lines. Let me show you where they connect. So those 2 lines will be filled with water, and they're going to come back to this area right here. This is our hot water center. This is actually a combination gas-fired condensing boiler. The boiler's at the top. You have a hot water tank down here for the faucets. We put it in for the hot water, but it also gives us the ability to power up our radiant floor heating system that we have in the garage, down here in the basement, and all the bathrooms.
So the heat pump and the refrigerant, that's primary source of heat. The water is now just backup?
Just in case, and it's really nice because we have this as a sort of a backup.
Very elegant. A system that you can't hear or see. I like that.
As the way it should be.
Yeah, so,
Enough of that.
well, just, remarkable.
Any questions on any of that? Keep going.
All right, so we're coming to the finish here. For a 12-month project, we've obviously fast-forwarded through a lot of it, but let's look at how some of these spaces got finished up.
Gang's all here, huh? What do you guys think of this transformation?
Unbelievable, really.
Isn't it?
I think it's great, and we really wanted to keep the house the way it was when we originally got here. We didn't take the siding off, we left the windows, those have been reconditioned. New front door and sill, which is really nice.
Mark did a little bit of stone work out here too, Jen, because the house, I mean, it was basically below grade and it was getting clobbered with water.
Right, so this is for aesthetics, but also for function, right, Tom?
Right, you're right. I mean, the function, you think about the side wall of the house and the sill are actually down about a foot below this grade here. There was a trench. But what we did is we waterproofed all of the wood and then covered it with the granite.
Right, so this protects this area, but gives the illusion of the old foundation.
Very nice. So we've got three distinct buildings, right? We've got the original Gambrel, and then we've got the new L in the middle. But this is all redone because, as our architect called it, the original L, he said it was dreadful.
Yeah. I think the two-story addition that they put on it in the late 1800s is dreadful.
Don't sugarcoat it.
No, sorry.
What don't you like about it? So it was too high, 2 stories. You could see it from the front of the house. Now it's back down to 1 story. It sort of fits nicely between the front building and then the new back building, which is all new space, sort of a barn structure there.
Right, and they also brought this wall of the L out about 10 feet, which gave more floor space inside.
Right, and also adding to the front, we have this beautiful dry-laid retaining wall, and it's also a sitting wall for the front entryway. And then we have the reclaimed granite slab that just marks the beautiful new entry.
Terrific. It all looks so great.
Well, we have this reclaimed brick walkway as well, and then a barrier of native plants to give a little break between the road and the house.
Beautiful. And the boathouse looks great. That was pre-cut off-site in a shop, and then brought on-site in about 2 days, assembled.
Cool.
So the building is actually downhill. We needed to send mechanicals to it, so we buried water and also pumped drainage up into that main house.
And speaking of the main house, I mean, how good does it look from this side?
Unbelievable.
I mean, look at that thing. So we've got that barn structure on this side, so the primary suite up top and this little sunroom down low. And then we've got the L, which looks great on this side, and the original Gambrel, too.
And remember, the deck used to run the whole length of the house.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's just shortened to a covered deck down onto this beautiful reclaimed brick patio. And to me, is the best spot in this whole place.
Yeah.
And look at the magical view you get.
Great.
Yeah.
Wait, there's more.
Just one more, please.
Go ahead.
I'm here in the front foyer of the Gambrel, and we did a little work in here, but not much. The riser height was different. We straightened that out, and now the stairway is nice and smooth, and it looks great. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Tommy.
Boy, this bedroom looks great, doesn't it?
We're so happy with it.
I love it myself. I love the old posted beam and everything else.
It was
You
small.
just feel the history of this house.
I can, and it's just wonderful.
And to think that 300 years ago, someone hand-hewn this purlin.
Right, and that's basically a tree, all right? They took the tree up, they hand-hewn it, what they had to do, made mortise and tenon, and they made a flat spot on top for the boards to nail to as they travel down the roof.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go take a look at this feature, which we're particularly proud of. This was my wife's idea.
This is a great idea. I mean, this basically is a window stool that is really wide because it goes right into the window. I love the fact that old boards were used.
Absolutely.
Oh boy, Bill, here we are on the front room under the bedroom that we were just at on the 2nd floor, and this looks beautiful, doesn't it?
I know, we love our living room. And like upstairs, we decided to open up the ceilings, and to our delight, we found on this wall plate and that wall plate, the beading, which we learned from you, Tommy, means that this was intended to be exposed.
Right, it's basically a decorative point, and it picks off of this little beaded detail in all the gunstock posts, and they just transferred it here. It looks absolutely beautiful. Hey, Marl.
Hey,
It looks great.
It looks beautiful. The colors looks fantastic. So
Yeah.
you guys know, but we had a designer and a color consultant to work with the homeowners to choose the best historical colors for this part of the house.
Yeah.
An amazing job. You can see here that we have the slight darker for all the millwork and trim in this room. And the plaster wall is slight lighter, like a lighter color, like an old house should be.
Yeah, the earth tones are really sweet. And I love the texture and the sheen that was chosen. And I also like the texture on the wall.
They did a great job picking the color.
Yes,
Nice.
and you did a
We love
great
it.
job putting it on.
Oh, good.
Let's
Right,
take a
someone has
look
to
over
make it.
here.
Okay. So Tommy, this is my favorite room. This is the den and my future office. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Mark. Well, I can see why it's your favorite room. Look at Mark's got a roaring fire going here. Mark, you rebuilt this fireplace. Now, this is a Rumford, correct?
So this is a Rumford. Now, we started with the superstructure, which was the chimney. That came with the conventional Ben Franklin fireplace that we saw, and then we turned it into a Rumford.
Great job, Mark. A lot of beaded detail on the vertical walls, hidden doors, a closet on each side for some storage, and a beautiful mantle and a place for you to sit and relax.
Yeah, and I love how we carried the beading over from other parts of the house into this room.
Yeah, it looks great. So I think you're really going to enjoy this space.
I can see myself sitting in this wing chair and sitting in front of the fire many nights from now.
I agree.
That's what it's supposed to do, yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. All right, let's take a look at the pantry.
Let's go.
See you guys.
All right, Mark, thanks.
Yep.
This space here really turned out nice too, Bill. It all came together with a lot of repurposed wood.
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, this wood used to be in the subfloor of the original L.
Right, and this covers up the old window that was here.
There was an old window there,
Yeah.
right? And this came from the floorboards from the second floor bedroom.
Yeah, I remember those, yeah.
And then we found these red planks up in the attic, and we were determined to use them somehow. And Kevin the carpenter did a great job in making them into
He
fancy
did a great
cabinets.
job. And I love the way that you left the detail of the texture right here. It really looks good.
Yeah.
Great space.
Yeah, we're very pleased.
This,
All right, last one coming here, but in some ways, I think we saved the best for last, right, Rich?
I think so.
Charlie.
Kevin?
Holy mackerel, the main event.
What do you think?
I think you pulled it off. This thing is awesome. I mean, exactly what the homeowners wanted.
I mean, I'm stunned by it every time I come into the room still.
It looks like it has always been here, but of course, the entire thing's really an illusion.
Right, once we did all the boards, did all the rafters, all our rafters came up, and then we took some reclaimed wood that we had and made our own beam and put it around the steel beam. And I think it came out really nice.
It came out really, really nice. Well, there are smiles everywhere. People are excited to see it. They're going to come in and it's going to blow their minds. First one's right here. Hey, Bill.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Hey, Helen.
Hi.
So, how's it feel to be home?
Oh my gosh, it is just beautiful.
Wow. You know, this is the way all our guests will be coming in, and the first thing they see is this beautiful river in front of us.
And you got your timber frame on display.
Sure did. And you know, it's wonderful, Charlie, that you were able to save this, 1870s attic.
Good job indeed. Well, there's lots to see, so let's have a look around.
Sure.
We'll start, I guess, with, what do you guys call this space?
This is our entry/reading area.
Reading, okay.
But the idea is, you can come in and take off your boots and stuff, and it also happens to be built out of some of the wood that we pulled up from the old second floor of the L.
Honestly, that's gotta feel good. When you sit on the board you pulled up from your own attic.
I know. And we love it because this is the sunniest part of the house. We get the morning sun. It's a great place to read your newspaper in the morning, have your cup of coffee.
Very nice. If you want something more comfortable, however, you did give yourself a spot to sit over here.
Absolutely. This is going to be our sitting area. Even though we have a lovely living room, this is really where we're going to spend all of our time. This was the original wall right here.
Yep.
And this was the 60s kitchen that was done very poorly.
So sitting areas, but also dining areas. If we come chuck back to the corner over here.
So this is our dining nook, right? We really wanted to have a dining area, that was a little more casual. We've got these beautiful light fixtures, that we saw being made.
Made by hand nearby.
Made by hand.
Really nice feature.
This was the exterior wall of the gambrel.
So I've got to admit, this is a bold design decision to leave these boards exposed. They are rough. You're going to get splinters walking by. And there they are. You said, yes, we want them.
And look at the size of these boards. They just don't make boards like this anymore. We had to keep it.
You did have to keep it.
One of our decisions we actually had to struggle with was where do you start the board? They start on the side, but where do they end, right?
Yeah.
We had the plaster line above, and look at this. This is the third bent of the gambrel. The rafter coming right through the whole thing.
1720 right there.
Right there.
Yeah. And it does a nice job of tying it back to the kitchen, which is, let's admit it, this is the main event in here.
Oh, it is beautiful. It was a challenge to put a, really modern, functional kitchen in this old space and not ruin, this old restored space.
Well, it works, but there were a lot of challenges in the space.
Well, there were. Just picking the right lighting, getting it the right height, attaching it to the ceiling, all of that was not easy.
And you took it to another level when the soapstone was turned into a sink, custom application.
I
for you
love the
guys.
double sink.
And we see things like hand-blown glass and not the modern amenities with microwaves tucked away or refrigerators, behind panels so it's not all stainless steel.
So, there you have it.
You must have a question or two, Richard?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me about some of the tips and tricks that you have for retaining lumber that represents very important distinctive features of the building, particularly when it's load-bearing, when it doesn't have the structural integrity to do so.
Like these homes, Helen and Bill were absolute zealous that no wood got thrown out, nothing was considered junk. And you just don't know what, I hope I understand your question, meaning when you're first doing demo, everybody wants to fill the dumpster. And it takes this restraint to say, no, and my kids have always made fun of me because I've saved things just so I can, there's a meme about me, that I finally found that 5-inch piece of wood that I needed, that I've saved for 30 years. And I just, if you're got a historical house, you don't know. You want to hang on to every stitch of wood that was from that period because you just don't know. In the old days, we used to say when somebody would do a new floor in the houses built in the 30s and 20s, you would, if you're going to renovate it, you'd go to the neighbor's house and see if you could borrow a piece from because it was all going to be the same wood, it was all going to be the same neighborhood or the same trees or the same local species. So I hope I answered your question, that nothing should go in the dumpster if you're trying to have a period house and bring it back. You just don't know where you would need this beautiful piece of oak or hickory or whatever it is.
But Rich, I think the other side of the question was that structural stuff, the structural lumber, there's all sorts of new material that you can't see. And so the beauty of what they did was they used the word illusion a lot to create the impression that the older wood is what's providing the structure, whereas there's LVLs, there's steel beams, there's all this stuff that is our new materials that allow the illusion of the older wood to tell the story.
All these engineered lumber products that you can use it for the structure and then mask it with that old board, and you could even glue it. You could glue it on to make it look like it's original. But we still have to have the structure. The dangerous thing is people putting old bad structure back in and ignoring it and thinking it's 200 years ago. So, yes.
The exterior color, that orange, seems very unusual. Can you talk about
ironically, it's the same color. It must have been the same historian. It's the same color that the house in Acton they didn't like. I think it was like that burnt ochre they called it, whatever. And it was, I think it was also historical. I think they found it in the paint, but it wasn't my color.
So you
hang on one second.
Oh, Larry, be quiet. So you put 21st century heating and air conditioning in. What you do for insulating the envelope to make it all efficient?
It's all foam, and
because you still have the exposed gunstock posts and all sorts of
right.
stuff.
Meaning everything. What you didn't see, I don't think you saw in that clip, there was the steel beam going across and then a real roof, super insulated, R40, right? And
What
then,
about the walls, the original walls?
right, so in this short segment we showed you, we didn't show that, but then it was, so we had an unbelievable type igloo. We detailed, you didn't see we put little tiny slotted outlets up in that ceiling, like, so it didn't even, you couldn't even tell where the heating registers were. And that everything fit into that mass. And then what you saw today was where Charlie put all those boards back just as for that illusion. You know, we had a super tight house, so tight that we had to have fresh air brought in. I mean, you couldn't have dreamt that you would need fresh air coming into a 1700 house.
Yeah.
Plenty of air.
I don't think any of our houses are that tight.
No. No. But this became this opportunity to take this building back, but to take it so it now is ready for the next 150 years. It really is, and it looks like spectacular. Yes.
I have to ask, how much did this restoration cost?
I think it was $1.5 million, $2 million, I think. And you know what, you say that and you go, oh, and that house will get every bit of its money back forever. Forever. You can't change location. You can't change what's there. And so, and I think I touched on it. Everybody wants to say, this question is the repeating one, about how much was it? And if we had to be limited to a restricting budget, we would have taken that whole building down and gone to the dumpster. We wouldn't have brought Matt Dana in to show the re-edging on the beams on the gun stocks and stuff like that. So I'm really glad that there was somebody willing to pay that kind of money. And that,
In what year was the restoration done?
April of 22 to March of 23. Yeah, and we are under an unbelievable deadline to get projects done at a higher speed because we have to produce them for a TV schedule. Yes. So the homeowner gets the benefit of that because we do projects that should be twice as long, and we get them done right, and they have a video record of it.
Underneath the porch, you can see the cistern.
Yeah.
Is it, at this point, just an interesting architectural feature, or is it?
It opens up. They detailed it so it also, in that basement, it's all super tight insulated. It's a beautiful dry basement. So there's a fabulous wine room, and the cistern represents the corner of that room. So it stays as an architectural element in the basement. It's very visual. It was.
The cistern in the outer, or did they open it up on one side to go in?
They open up on the inside, on one side. Yeah. And then I think they have a way to make it be so that the cold air doesn't come in. But it was an important element. I'm glad they didn't just blow it up. I mean, so many people would just come in with the backhoe and just go bang, So, Larry, you had a question?
I'm intrigued by that climate control, the inverter thing. Was that cold and heat, or cooling only?
Yes.
And what's the practical limit on the idea of separating it from the house is very important. I mean, how far out can you go? Like if you wanted to put it behind a detached garage or something like that.
Some of the ones that have refrigerant, we can go 200 feet. So we could have gone there. You have to allow for it. You can't have it be trapped. And that's more of a commercial device. Commercial buildings have a unit on the top, 20 foot, and it goes down, so it has to have refrigerant and run that far. And now this technology is now becoming unbelievably available for residential.
And what are they using for the refrigerant?
Well, it's about to change. That's another whole seminar. That's another whole seminar. They're about to change refrigerant that is allowed to be used, and that's going to lead to people looking at you and I say, you're going to have a condenser that just failed. They're going to say, I have to change not only the condenser, I got to change the inside unit, and I got to change the pipes in between.
So that's an important message. If anyone's considering it, you say, hold off until the new ones are?
Well, no, I would get it done before the new refrigerants. We don't know what this refrigerant, I'm sorry, yes.
What about bathroom? You didn't show any bathrooms, did you?
Not in this piece, but, you know, the bathrooms were spectacular. We did radiant heating in the bathrooms. We, you know, the levels of finish were there. But and she was Helen has obviously you can tell, Helen has an amazing eye for everything. And it shows in all of her choices and every surface. But the bathrooms just look like you'd want them to look in that kind of period house. And I welcome you to, you know, on thishouse.com, you can go watch all this stuff. You can see the whole thing. You know what happened to me during COVID? You know, I was with Melanie, and all of a sudden, I've been so busy, I didn't watch the show all the time. We've been making 52 episodes a year for 46 years. That's a lot of episodes. And I was like, and all of a sudden I started watching this show, and I said, Jesus, that's good. And I was reminded tonight that if as Kevin or anybody spoke and said something, you saw it. You saw it perfectly. Yeah. If they say it, you got to see it. And that's where I think we are so extraordinary as for teaching. Because if you know, and for me, the cutaway is the greatest thing ever, because my part of the world is this mysterious place that's behind the walls and under the basement and stuff like that. So there's nothing I don't want to cut in half. I mean, this podium I'd like to cut in half. I have a question over here.
So, again, back to Main Street, we have our basements double as pools. We have, you know, so many of us have some pump systems and that sort of thing. The question is, if the power goes, right, we all have access to natural gas too. But when the power goes, do you have good solutions for backup power that make sense in these times?
There was a very interesting thing that would be a short-term solution. It was a water-based sump pump. Like if the water didn't shut off, and what happens is this pump would come on and it would be using water pressure from the city supply to create this siphon and pull it. Now you could say, oh, it's so wasteful, but it could be as long as the water was on. And so, you know, in the Midwest, they have no basements and they have terrible flooding. There's nowhere for it to go. And so somebody that's really stuck in a place that use these, and that works. The other thing is a generator. You know, I think the nature of the world is going to be that most houses are going to end up with some sort of generator. I think they're afraid of the nature of the electrical grid. I think as we make everybody go into heat pumps, everybody go into Teslas, everybody, you know, I think we're all taking more and more off this electrical grid that is ancient. It's 80 years old, and it hasn't been maintained. All of our lines are above ground. Like, what's that about? So I think more and more people will probably find a way, and I think you have to find a way to have a generator that can be quiet enough in a place that's not distracting and terrible. And I really don't want to have this answer. I don't want to have a generator, but I think it's inevitable.
So I did have a couple of those inverter heat pumps put in, but also to the point about power losing, you know, we get hurricanes over here. So I was definitely a concern of mine, especially in winter. I really didn't want to have one of those Texas events where there's heat. That's the worst thing. So I thought about the generator, but there's a lot of power for those heat pumps. And so I ended up keeping our steam system purely as a backup.
Sure.
And we also have solar, but the battery on the solar, there's no way, it'll power our pumps. That's how we got around the sump pump issue for that.
Right. So if you have steam, the steam worked on a millivolt system. It didn't need any electricity. Just had a little pilot and a gas valve. So yes, but a one zone, 100% on system is a nice backup, but it's not the one you want to have for the other 364
My
days.
1825 house is one zone.
Yeah, they all are. Well, there's some cool stuff happening in the technology. So, all right.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.